Welcome to our new series, exploring the history of winter gardens in Blackpool. In this video, we will be exploring the main winter gardens building itself, looking at the original Victorian atriums and uncovering some of the hidden history inside. The Winter Gardens Blackpool opened in 1878 as a large indoor entertainment complex. The original Winter Gardens was built on the Bank Hay estate, a large house situated at the top of Victoria Street, as can be seen here. The original incarnation of the complex was built behind Bank Hay House, upgrading the front of the house as an entrance to the complex, known as the Grand Vestibule. Some of the original parts of Bank Hay House, mainly the outer walls, are still used in this building today as part of the Mazai Cafe, and some of which we will uncover in this video. Over the years, the building has had some extensive modifications, slowly changing into the complex we see today. Its original footprint in 1878 consisted of the Floral Hall, Horseshoe Arcade and the Pavilion Theatre. Upgrades in the late 1800s added the Opera House, Empress Ballroom, the Ferris Wheel and the Indian Lounge. Then finally, its biggest changes came in the 1930s, adding the Olympia exhibition hall that replaced the Ferris Wheel, the Gallion Bar, Baronial Hall, Spanish Hall and the brand new Opera House. The whole complex is now owned by Blackpool Council, unlocking funding to carry out major repairs and upgrades to keep it running for many more years to come.
So you've got the Grand Dome here, the main dome that you see when you walk into Winter Gardens. This is the main entrance now. You can see here, look at that, how amazing is that? And then right in front of us, I don't need to introduce these two, I'm sure you'll all know who these are. Good old Eric and Ernie. Here, there used to be a small fountain. So right here we're stood in what is known as the Floral Hall. Now this is the main walkway that takes you from the main entrance, where the giant dome is, all the way through and into the Horseshoe Pavilion, which is just through them doors at the back there, which then bends around. Now all this section here and the Horseshoe are the original part of Winter Gardens. And we can just see the original Victorian arch roofs here. How fantastic is that? If you just look up there, it's hard to say, but I'll zoom in for you. But that star is the only one that's not upright compared to the others. So it's a purposeful imperfection, shall we say. Brilliant. So this is the, well, one side of the Horseshoe Pavilion. If you look on Google Earth from above, you can clearly see the horseshoe. And also the original part of the building, built in the 1870s. And on the original pictures, if you look at Winter Gardens, this was here. So this is the Pavilion Theatre, as it's known, which is in the middle of the horseshoe. And he was saying again outside that people like Morecambe and Wise, they preferred to perform in here, with it being more intimate as opposed to the Opera House. How many seats did you say? 1,400?
This was 1,000.
1,000 seats in here. So it is, I mean, it's hard to believe from here, but it is a full-size theatre. You've got the balcony levels up here, above us. And again, I'll put a picture in now so you can see what the theatre looks like. But it's not used very often because of the fact they've got other theatres already in the building, i.e. the Opera House and the Grand Theatre just round the corner. So what they do is they use this for small events, as you can see here. They've closed the top part off and they're hoping to do some work on the upper levels at some point. You've got the original dance floor here and quite a small stage, as I was saying. The original backstage area is the cafe behind, which we'll take a look at in a second. I'll show you that. So here we've got the Empress grill room behind me. This is what I was talking about a second ago. This is the original backstage area. And you've got the original fly roof just above it up here, where they would have the scenery coming down. And that's just above the grill room there. You can actually still see it. It's still there, but it's hidden. So here we've got the Gallion bar, which looks modern, but it actually isn't. It's the original 1930s Andrew Mazai design to look like a galleon or a pirate ship. And you can see some of the original detail. And again, I'm told it's supposed to be wood, but none of it is. It's actually plaster. I'll try and knock on it. I'll show you. You can see the wood grain there. But it's fake. It's not wood at all, which is amazing because it does look real. You've got the original Gallion front there. It's now a bar, like I say, and they do have entertainment next door as well. But the theme alone is really good. It just looks authentic.
The Baronial Hall opened in 1931 as part of the major extensions. It's on the upper floors of the building in the newly extended entrance archway, along with the Windsor Bar, Renaissance Room and the Spanish Hall that we will see shortly. All the wood panelling that you see is nothing more than clever plasterwork, just like inside the Gallion Bar.
Right, so we're going to look at the Spanish Hall, which is a room that was recently restored inside the Winter Gardens. So let's take a look. I've been dying to see this because I've never seen this before, and I've been told it is amazing. Just look at that. I didn't even know this was here. It's amazing. So the large Winter Gardens dome, or entrance that you see, which I'll put a picture in now, this is the other side of it. So just a few feet behind it is the stage area here. And the detail on that, you've got some nice paintings there. There's some old villages, you've got the clouds, the roof. Now this used to be covered up with linen, but not anymore. It's back to how it used to be. Just the details, look at this. I'm absolutely in love with this building. It's absolutely amazing. There's so many rooms in here that you don't even know exist. I've been in here so many times and I never knew that this was here. Like I said, this was built in the archway of the front entrance that you see where it says Winter Gardens. It was built on the roof space of that, hence the arched roof up there. So these rooms that we're looking at on the top floor here, so you've got the Spanish room here, the Baronial Hall next door, and also the Gallion Bar downstairs, were designed by Andrew Mazai. Now I've got the pronunciation of that right, I was panicking about that. But Andrew Mazai, which the cafe downstairs is named after, the Mazai Cafe. Now he was a 1930s UK or British set designer in the movies, and hence why the designs here look very much like film sets. So he designed all these rooms here in the 1930s. So what you see today still remains from Andrew Mazai's designs. Now he did do some designs in the Olympia as well, the other side of the building, and a couple of smaller areas as well. They no longer exist, but all these are original. So we're up here on the second level for the Spanish Hall here. And he was just saying as well, all the windows in this little village here, all the windows right across, they all light up. And I have seen a picture with the lights in them, but today they're not on for some reason, but they do light up. You can just see some of the wiring there behind the little Spanish village where it lights up. You can see some of the plaster work there, where they've plastered it on the mesh and the steel frame behind it. You never see this sort of thing. And then over 100 years of dust down there, as you'd expect. And inside these little quirky houses. So all of this again that you see, look at this nice stone veranda here, only it's not. It's plastic or plasterwork. So, I've got a bit of crack in the plasterwork here, which they've obviously taken out for inspection. But you can see into the original wall of the building there. Look at that window frame there. Original, that's stone. And you can still see some of the paint there, the designs on it. Look at the patterns on the wall. So this, they're not sure where it's from or what it was. They think it could have been an original frontage that's obviously been hidden now behind a wall, but I'm going to have to look at some of the pictures and see if I can figure out what this was. You can see the original front of the dome there. Right, so again, we're not sure what that is. It's a stone window frame, and they go right across here inside. So this back wall here is the end of the arch that you see, the glass archway. So, but they said, rumours are that that was part of the original Bank Hay house that was here before the Winter Gardens, but they're not 100% sure about that, and they're not convinced either. Anyway, shall we do some digging and see if we can find out ourselves?
This would be situated on the upper level above today's Victoria Street entrance, but directly in line with the old frontage of the Winter Gardens, known as the Grand Vestibule. They weren't definite on what this was, but after studying the old pictures, maps and the layout, I'm pretty certain that this is the frontage of the Grand Vestibule, just in front of the old Bank Hay house. If you look at this picture of the Grand Vestibule building, you can clearly see that the window designs in there and the frontage matches exactly with what we saw hidden inside. Also, from the roof view, you can see the shape of the building's old roof, and where the glass canopy of the Spanish Hall meets that building.
So as you come in the Victoria or the Coronation Street entrance, you've got this little stained glass building, or a vestibule as I'll call it. Today it houses a disabled lift into the floral hall. You can see some of the old pillars on there with the patterns on. But this, I believe, is the wall here, the front of the Grand Vestibule. But this is where it follows through, down through the building. But you can see the old window frames here, where they've blocked them in now. But you can see the curvature at the top, where they've just built a roof here. So now you've got the Spanish Hall above us here. But that wouldn't have been there. This was all an atrium, all the way out here. And it was known as the Palm House. And it had giant palms and trees. And the original building front of Winter Gardens was visible.
I speculated that this was the original frontage to the Winter Gardens, known as the Grand Vestibule. Well, this was correct. And I'm now going to show you some rare pictures of that building, just before it was covered over by the Spanish Hall. This was known as the Palm House and Fennery. The large glass canopy was constructed in front of the Grand Vestibule as a new entrance into the complex, sometime early in the 1900s. It was filled with lush palm trees and incorporated the old entrance inside. In the 1930s, this was split into two levels. The first level is what you see today as the Victoria Street foyer, and the second level contained the Spanish Hall. This is when the Grand Vestibule facade would have been covered over and hidden behind the walls. We uncover more of this forgotten building throughout this video.
And then today, this is what it looks like now. So again, that's the Coronation Street, Victoria Street entrance. We've got another lounge just over here. Some stairs up into that side and then up to the floral hall that way. And this is the room that I was just showing you with the stained glass windows in. But originally this was all open. But you've got the Spanish Hall up there now. Like I said, that was put in the 1930s as a second level. But you would have come in from this street here and walked straight into a giant dome here, right up to the glass ceiling, which is now in the Spanish room. You can kind of see some of the original patterns that used to be in the Palm Hall or Palm Room, whatever they called it. Some of the original arches on the wall. Now it's plaster up there. They've painted it now, but I'm presuming these were the original columns as well. All nicely painted now. It would have ran all the way up to the ceiling. And this is the Durham Lounge, which is just to the left of the Victoria Street entrance as you come in. So again, a nice old room this. How old would you say this was, David? I'm not quite sure on this one. Probably dates back to when the Palm House was here, maybe.
It more than likely did, yeah. I know they found the chandelier down in the catacombs in a box and decided to use it in here, which is rather nice.
Oh, fantastic.
Rather
so
just being dusty down there.
David just said they found that in a box in the basement. Yeah, this is now the edge of the Winter Gardens complex. Lovely deco. It looks Edwardian, maybe Victorian. Not quite Art Deco, definitely not. So this is the Mazai Cafe, but it's rumoured that this back wall here is the original wall of Bankhay House, the original house that stood on this site before Winter Gardens was built. And the grand vestibule is just through there. We'll go have a look at that in a second. That was the one that was built on the outside of it. But this is thought to be the shape of the original Bankhay House. Now, they believe that the only wall that exists from Bankhay is this one here, behind the plasterwork, and down to the cellars down there. Now, this room here is the original building that was known as the Grand Vestibule. So you used to enter Winter Gardens through this front entrance here, where the bar is now, and come into Winter Gardens this way. This would have been some kind of a big lounge, and I think there was another level above it, which is now, like I say, the back of the Spanish. In fact, no, it's the Baronial Hall up there. That's the Baronial Hall. So you've got the Baronial Hall above us in the old Grand Vestibule. At the time I was in there, I didn't know that, but now I do. But you can see the old Victorian pillars in the middle of the room here, just to make it more spacious. And you can see those window designs there on the back wall, which were replicated up there, hidden in behind the plasterwork. But this is one of the original rooms anyway, or one of the oldest rooms in the building. Not the oldest, but one of the oldest. Now we've just headed up towards what was the Spanish Hall again, or what is the Spanish Hall, just up here. Now I've got a little story to tell you about this carpet. Now it's not this exact carpet, but it's one that used to be here. But apparently this whole corridor here and the stairs was known as the spit carpet.
The spit carpet was a clever marketing ploy by promoter Bill Holland to bring in the working classes and pay the entrance fee into the complex. It was advertised as a 100 guinea carpet that you were welcome to come and spit on as a snub to the high society. People did come in their masses, but none, thankfully, are said to have spat on the carpet, as they actually appreciated its quality.
But in here is what is known now as the Windsor Bar. But you can get up the staircase here from the Gallion bar downstairs. And again, you've got the roof there, straight out to the daylight. But I'm not sure when this was built. It's hard to tell because there's so many periods for this building. And then you've got this third room here, which is known as the Renaissance room. And we didn't see this last time either. But this is actually, it's hard to describe unless you know the top level, but you've got the Spanish Hall at the front. Then you've got the Baronial Hall, which we saw in the first video, which is there. And then this room, just at the side here. This looks, again, Victorian. But then you've got things like this at the top that look very Art Deco. So I'll pop it down below when this was built, because I'm not 100% sure while I'm here.
This room is known as the Harold Suite, named after Harold Grimes and not Harold Wilson, as people believe. It is said that during World War II, this was used by Winston Churchill to chair a Cobra-style meeting. However, during the meeting, the Winter Gardens fire officer came in and removed the cigar from Winston Churchill's mouth. Fire officers were deemed as superior authority back in those times, and their rules were upheld in the strictest of terms.
I wonder if it was Keith Ladd.
Smoke kills in seconds, fire kills in minutes.
The Blackpool Opera House opened originally in 1889 as part of the Winter Gardens complex. It has been rebuilt twice in its history, enlarged in 1910 and then completely rebuilt in 1939. It's now a Grade II listed building and one of the largest theatres in Europe, with a capacity of 2,813 people over 3 levels. The original building that opened in 1889 and called Her Majesty's Opera House was designed by architect Frank Matcham, who also designed the nearby Grand Theatre and the famous Blackpool Tower Ballroom. It had a capacity of 2,500, but this was considered insufficient at the time. Enlarged in 1910, it was again considered insufficient. The final building, which is what you see today, was built in 1939. It was a complete rebuild of the stage and auditorium area. Although a few parts of the old buildings remain as part of the complex, as you will see in this video. Let's start our explore with the enormous auditorium.
So here we are, stood in the auditorium of the Opera House. Quite a few thousand people in here. In fact, just short of 3,000 is the capacity of this theatre, or the Opera House as it's known. And here's the stage area, just behind me. How many seats did you say? 1,401. 401, and he just said that it actually eclipses many other theatres around the country just on the stalls alone. And you can see why. I mean, it is so wide. I have been in here. I sat down there watching Peter Kay. I think it was 2006, something like that. Yeah, absolutely massive. And then obviously you've got the other levels, which we'll see in a minute, up there. This was rebuilt in the 1930s completely, and a lot bigger than the original one. And all done in the Art Deco style, as you can see from a lot of the fixtures and fittings. A lot of them have been kept as well, which is amazing. You can see by the light fittings there, very Art Deco. So here we are, stood on the circle. Again, you can see the stalls down there. And the massive stage. Look at that huge ventilation shaft there. So we were saying about the blue seats that they used for the Royal Box and the Royal Variety. They used these seats here, and they actually separated the area off, so she had her own Royal Box here. And then the original one, they had a Royal Box just over there that was constructed just for the Royal Variety performance. So again, we've got the original seat frames on these seats in the theatre. Obviously the upholstery's been changed over the years, but the original wooden seats you can see by the bottoms there, very Art Deco looking. So we've just reached the top floor in the theatre. So you've got the, what I would call, in the gods up here. But yeah, still get an amazing view here. But you can see the projection room up there. I think we're going to head up there now. Oh, fantastic. So you've got the brand new 3D projector here. And look at the size of that. It's not what you get in your house, is it? It's absolutely massive. I mean, that would have cost quite a lot. And then you've got, these are the old 1930s projectors, you say. So look how original these machines are. They look brilliant, don't they? And then you've obviously got your spotlights here, which they use in performances today. One on either end. So here's the original projectors from the 1930s, that's nearly 100 years old. Look at the size of the lenses on them. So this room here, obviously not used anymore, it's actually the original cutting room for the film reels. And he was just saying they get them from the studios and they come in here and cut them and glue them together with all the, look at that, cine film cement. Got all this original machinery down here, all for different. And you've got your film cans there, look. Your original film reels, storage cans, because obviously film was quite flammable. So they kept it in these containers to make sure it was safer, and some original film there. And then the old storage system here to put the film reels in, look. How great is all this? It's so vintage. Brilliant. Again, the old power system for the lighting and the stage. Look at the old fuses here. And then the old, would have been your old levers here. You can see in this room here where the original bar would have been. You can clearly see that there. He was just saying the original Art Deco floor. Look at the fancy artwork on that. And it's still in good nick. That's what we like to see. Yeah, they don't use this anymore, it's just a storage area now, but who knows in future, one day. So we stood in this side area just outside the Opera House and the upper levels. And you can see now, we've just come out into a corridor, and you can see through these beautiful windows, we're actually inside the main dome at the entrance to Winter Gardens. You can just see the dome roof up there behind me. Yeah, how amazing is that? And you've got the Morecambe and Wise statue there. So in case you're not aware, this, as far as I'm aware, it was built as a fire escape, wasn't it? Modern fire escape.
I don't know.
Apparently, that's what I read. They said that this, because obviously this section here protrudes into the actual dome, and it didn't used to exist. But due to them building the modern opera house, I say modern now, but the modern opera house at the time, they had to factor in modern health and safety. And because they use a lot of the original layout, they had to put in this fire escape, which slightly encroached into the dome here. So that's why, if you look down from the bottom up, this is the only section that pops out. So we're at the circle level in the opera house, and this room here, which is at the front of the building, is the original entrance foyer for the first and second, we think, incarnation of the opera house. The ones that were demolished when they rebuilt the new one that you see today. Now you can just see here, we've got a balcony level there, and then this level is not the ground level. So you would have come in on the level below, where the stalls are, and a grand staircase swept up, and you could get to the various levels in the theatre from in here, like you do today, but it's a different layout and a different foyer now. Again, this predates the actual opera house. So obviously that's all Art Deco. This is Victorian period. You can tell by the fancy pillars up here. And not much Art Deco, apart from the fittings, which have obviously been changed to Art Deco just there. So these chairs are the original chairs, as you can see, BWC, Blackpool Winter Gardens Company. And yeah, so they found them on eBay, and they bought them back, and they keep buying more as well, which is brilliant. But look at this room. This is obviously a bar area.
An original 1939 bar.
Is it still used today?
Yep.
Brilliant. So still use this as a bar area, obviously for your interval drinks and things. Brilliant. Look at the old vintage Art Deco filters, air filters here. Now these are across the whole theatre, you can see them everywhere. But this design here is just saying it's been replicated downstairs onto some window panels, did you say?
Yeah, so we renovated the Empress Grill, which was once a cafe, stage door cafe. And the architects at the time, when they were revitalising these rooms, took things like these features and put them into the new style buildings.
Fantastic. And just here is what they call the carriage room, which again would have been in the 1920s, 30s, where people would have come to relax and rest before a show. I mean, and probably have a cigar, as they did back then. Look at the old seating here, or velvet. What is it, velvet?
What is that, velvet?
And then look at that, the old wood panels. Again, all these original pieces of art on the wall. I've just noticed this. Look at the old wardrobe. Look at that. It's so vintage, it's unreal. Look at that, the old Art Deco wardrobe. I'm sure my grandma had something like that. Yeah, the wood panelling. This again, the ceilings. But he said that when they did the Royal Variety here in 2009, this is where the Queen came to relax, and they used this as her room.
The Royal Variety performance has been staged at the Blackpool Opera House on 3 separate occasions. Its first being in 1955, and it was the first time the Royal Variety had ever been hosted outside of London. Now let's head backstage and see what's hidden behind there.
So here we are in the Opera House Theatre, and I'm currently stood on the stage. Now this stage is believed to be the largest or the widest stage, and one of the highest as well. But it's also the second largest in the world behind the Paris Opera House. And just behind the safety curtain here is the actual auditorium. Now I have been to see shows here before, and I never thought that one day I'd be stood on that stage, but I have sat out there. Yeah, the sheer scale of it in here is just absolutely, it's massive. Just look up there. So we're just making our way down underneath the Opera House stage. So this is what you would have as backstage area, all the dressing rooms, etc. Now these, it was just saying, are the large dressing rooms used for the bigger casts. A lot of the children's shows and things they're doing here. You can see some of the stars up there, French and Saunders, Freddie Starr. So what you're seeing here is the lift mechanisms, and you can see the weights there, the counterweights. This is for the trapdoors up on the stage there, so they can lift the equipment up to the stage level from the back here. So apparently this was installed for Frank Sinatra, it's rumoured anyway. And yeah, he would tap his foot and the microphone would pop out from the stage. And just this thing here with a little motor on it, a small lift mechanism. And as you can see, a little trapdoor at the top where the mic would have gone through the mic stand. So this is what is known as the orchestra pit, right at the front of the stage. You can see the stage just above us there. And he said this can be removed if they want to use this pit, obviously. All right, here we go. Something very special hidden in this cupboard here. And you'll all recognise it just from the panel at the side. It's one of the original Wurlitzers. One of two at Winter Gardens. They've got one in the ballroom as well. And then obviously this one in the Opera House. Now if you did watch the Royal Variety performance filmed here in 2009, was it? Yes. Peter Kay came out of the floor on the Wurlitzer. So this is an actual riser platform here. So the whole Wurlitzer will just lift out of the floor straight up to the stage. Look how amazing that is. I wouldn't know where to start with one of them. Look at all the pedals down there. So we're just coming up from the stage level again, heading upstairs above the stage this time. So here we have another dressing room. So like I was saying, these are above the stage area, which is down there. Nice bathroom there. Yes, there's plenty of room for big casts anyway. Up above Monk House. Legend, Ken Dodd.
The Empress Ballroom opened in 1896, just 2 years after the Blackpool Tower Ballroom, and as direct competition with their rivals at the time. It was accessed by a carriage entrance in the newly created Empress Buildings on Church Street that led through the Italian gardens and into the ballroom. It was designed by architects Magnell and Littlewood and made on a much larger scale than their neighbouring competition. It has over 12,500 square feet of floor area, making it one of the largest ballrooms in the world. In 1918, during World War I, the ballroom was requisitioned to assemble gas envelopes for airships. It was handed back a year later, with some restoration also taking place. During the Second World War, it was requisitioned once again and used for RAF training purposes by day and entertainment in the evenings. One of the most infamous events to take place at the Empress was a concert by the Rolling Stones in July of 1964. Infamous as they were banned from ever performing in Blackpool again after a riot broke out at their concert. Band guitarist Keith Richards was involved in an altercation with a member of the 7,000 strong audience, causing the crowd to spit at the band and rioting to break out. The ban was eventually lifted in 2008. The ballroom was built alongside the infamous Indian Lounge, which we will look at in greater detail in a future video. Now let's begin our explore by making our way down the stairs from the entrance lobby.
So we've made it to the Empress Ballroom inside the Winter Gardens complex. So let's go in and see what awaits us behind these doors here. So here we are in the Empress Ballroom, and I've got to say, it just took my breath away as we came down those stairs. It's a lot bigger than what I thought it was. When you come inside, after seeing pictures, it's a lot bigger. It is absolutely huge, and it does give the Blackpool Tower Ballroom a run for its money. I'm telling you that now. But just look at the scale of it in here, that roof. On the walls, all this you can see all the way around the building is actually Dalton, before it became Royal Dalton. And this actually predates the Dalton artwork in the Harrods food hall. So if you've been to Harrods, you'll definitely recognise the style. But it's all the way around the walls. And one of the largest collections of this anywhere in the world, I'm told. So you can see the fabulous ornate mirrors all the way around the walls of the building. Now, David, our tour guide today, is here. He was just telling me that apparently you can see ghostly figures dancing on the ballroom floor in these mirrors. Whether you believe that or not is down to you. Now just look at that amazing roof up there. And I'm told recently restored, again, back to its former glory. It did have a massive restoration works carried out, and also the ballroom floor here as well has been restored. You can tell it's nice and shiny. You can see a lot of the patterns in there. The original artwork on the floor. I'm just stood in the middle now. I mean, just look at the scale of this, it's huge. All that lovely gold ceiling there. Now that side there is the entrance at the back where the conference centre is, so you can actually see the daylight coming through those windows there. And you've got some boxes up there, which are obviously for the stage. Yeah, that's amazing. And a rather modern looking balcony here, definitely a new addition. Nice glass balcony, just protruding over the dance floor. How fantastic is that? It's worth mentioning as well, it used to have 3 gigantic chandeliers in here. This is before the war, and now replaced with these slightly smaller ones. But when they took them out during the war, apparently they were too much of a problem to put back in place, so they just replaced them with these smaller ones. So we're in the Princess, or Diana, Princess of Wales suite. But this is directly behind the stage, so the stage is just in front of us here. You can see all the old ornate furniture in here. Like this old desk here. Got the leather chairs and things, and the nice wall panels. It looks quite regal in here, I must say. Yeah, that looks fantastic. All these quirky little rooms hidden away. And here's the stage from the other side. So the Diana room was just behind there. Yeah, it's quite a big stage. Now I believe this used to be a clamshell shape. It's like a big clamshell that went over here. And I'll put a picture of that in now so you can see what I'm talking about. Just look at the decoration above the stage as well. So here we are on the balcony, or the mezzanine level. Better view up here. It goes all the way around the back there, all the way around here. So we're going to have a look at the dressing rooms just behind the stage, and look what we've just spotted. Again, under a tarpaulin to keep it clean. It's the old Wurlitzer. Now I believe this is the original Wurlitzer from here that left the Empress Ballroom many years ago. Disappeared, ended up in other theatres elsewhere around the country, up until quite recently, I think, and then they brought it back here and put it back where it belongs, which is amazing. Let's just have a look under here. Oh wow, yeah, that is definitely the original one. But I believe it was taken out in the 60s maybe from here and then sent all around the country into different places. You can just see how intricate they are, these machines. And then just round here is the back of the stage, but on the second level. So you'd use this to walk round the stage, and actually the balcony level as well, so you could walk round the stage from the balconies. Just at the back of the stage on the second level we've got the dressing rooms for the Empress here. So these are where you would house the band, members obviously. So we're now at what they call the God's level. As you can see, we're right at the top of the ballroom. Just look how amazing it looks from up here again. So you've got a couple of seats up here and these windows here, which that is the other side looking out towards the Olympia. So the daylight you see coming in is above the roof line. You've got some Greek goddess statues here. Now, these were known, David was just telling me, as the Dusty Busties. Now, dusty because they're so hard to reach, to dust them, and the same on the other side, over there, on the back wall. So the Dusty Busties, I don't need to explain what the busty bit is. Some kind of a ducting room at the back for the pipe work and the air vents. So we're back in the entrance or the foyer area for the Empress Ballroom. So we've just come out of the ballroom now, but this is the entrance room. So right through there, you've got the floral hall. So that's what you'll see passing through Winter Gardens, and you would enter the ballroom through here. There's also another entrance on the other side coming in from the street side. Now the decor in here, David tells me they call it or refer to it as Mockintosh, because it's not Macintosh, it's a mock version of Macintosh. So we've headed round to St John's Square to take a closer look at this carriage entrance here. But we're going to just take a look through the window here. Unfortunately, the premises is closed today, so I can't get you inside. But I'm going to poke you through the window and tell you a little story about something that was recently uncovered inside there. Now this is looking in the old carriage entrance. Today it is a cafe, but if you just look on the walls to the right there and to the left, you can see some tiled panels on the wall. Now they are currently known as the Neatby panels, again made by Dalton of Royal Dalton fame, but they were buried behind fake walls that were put up inside this room many years ago. They were only uncovered recently during restoration works, where they found some of the original panels still intact behind the walls, and they are on display today in this cafe here, which is nice to see. But there were a lot more than what is in there currently, because the entrance or the tunnel used to stretch further inwards. That's been demolished years ago, so they have been lost forever, unfortunately. But we do still have a number of them on display in there, which is great to see.
The room was originally opened as the Turkish Lounge in 1896. It was built along with and next to the Empress Ballroom. But it was quickly changed to the Indian Lounge just one season after opening, as at the time there were many massacres carried out across the Ottoman Empire, and the Winter Gardens Company didn't want to associate itself with that. At the time there was already an Indian Lounge at Blackpool's Royal Palace Gardens and an Indian Pavilion on the North Pier. So they made sure that this was much more grander and lavish than theirs. In 1964, in an attempt to modernise the building, it was converted into a cabaret space and renamed the Planet Room, with a large stage at the end of the room and a bar at the side. It also meant the removal of the domed roof and a new enclosed roof installed. This featured lights on the ceiling in the form of planets and constellations. Again in 1989, it was rethemed and updated as a Roman-style room, known as what we see today as the Arena. The Arena is made to be an adaptable event space and can accommodate 400 people as a theatrical space, or up to 1,200 as a concert hall.
So this is the Arena as it's known today. Now this room used to be known as the Indian Lounge when it was first built. And I've got to say, it was much, much more impressive than this room today. It later became the Planet Room, which basically meant you had all the constellations of the stars all over the roof here. But today it's known as the Arena, which is a Greek theme, so to speak. Now this isn't a massive venue, but it was much bigger than this when it was the Indian Lounge. Now I'm going to show you a few pictures just so you can get how impressive this room used to be and what it looked like. Now, as far as they're aware, that was all ripped out many years ago when they turned this into the Planet Room. However, I'm reliably informed that they didn't rip a lot of it out. In fact, a lot of it is still here within the building, and it's hidden behind the walls. Now, coming into this room here, we've just had some confirmation that that's probably true. If you just look at this doorway here, so in there you've got the Empress Ballroom. Now just look at the thickness of this wall here, and that's board. So you've got this whole wall thickness here, and this is the inner walls of the arena. But if we were to knock on that, that is just plasterboard. You can see, or you can hear through it. Now, somebody that watched my original videos, he got in touch with me. He used to be a fire safety officer here in this building many years ago, and he sent me some pictures, which I'll show you in a minute, which were taken behind this plasterboard here and inside this wall. And they show the original features or decorations, or some of them, still here behind these walls, intact, covered in dust, but intact. And what they did was he had to get up onto the roof somehow and shimmy down into the void to get these pictures.
This is believed to be a hidden access panel in the wall, to enter the void space between the arena walls and the original inner walls of the Indian Lounge. Here you can see the void space with the false wall on the right and some of the original wallpaper of the Indian Lounge. And again, the same looking in the other direction, with what appears to be one of the original windows outside boarded up and covered over as it is today. I'm not 100% sure what we're looking at here. Again, you can see the false wall to the left. It seems to match the two panels located on the upper level at the back of the lounge, besides the back windows, as can be seen here in this illustration of the lounge. This appears to show a pillar hidden behind, again matching the colour scheme and appearance. And again the same here, a section of decoration that looks to have been boxed in above a false wall and a ceiling. And a closer look at the same section above the false roof. It's hard to tell what parts of the room some of these are from, with no detailed photographs available of the Indian Lounge, and some parts are never seen in the pictures that we have.
But yeah, it's much bigger when it was the Indian Lounge. I mean, you can just see, it is big, but it's not massive today. It's probably 2 foot shorter on each side than it used to be. And it's nice to know, and I'm not even sure if Winter Gardens are aware of this, that behind that wall, or them walls, are some of the original features of the Indian Lounge. Now, I am told reliably that they looked into maybe restoring it back to the Indian Lounge many years ago, but the cost was going to be astronomical. You're talking millions and millions of pounds just to put it back to the Indian Lounge or what it looked like. Now, they wouldn't recuperate that really, even though it would be impressive to look at, but it is nice to know that it's still there behind those walls. This roof here used to have 3 glass domes all the way down and a big giant one in the middle there. They're long gone now. It's now covered over with what used to be the constellations of the stars. But if you were to look on Google Earth from the top, you'll see that those domes are now gone. And this roof is just a false ceiling covering the original glass roof. But it's hard to imagine what used to be here. So today it's used as mainly a rehearsal space, and they do events in here and also smaller exhibitions. It's a big room, and yeah, it is still in use, which is good. Now, this room is also known for its fantastic acoustics. Just talking to the camera now, I can hear myself echoing back really quickly. And if I bang my hand on this stage now, listen to this. That were amazing. You can actually hear the echo, but it's muted. It kind of echoes really quick, back and forth. There's no long echo. It's definitely probably due to the curved roof and probably the carpet as well. So in the arena here, which like I said, used to be a Greek theme, it's kind of still resembles that, but I wouldn't say it was very Greek looking today. And then you've got the bar just through here, which is another separate room on the side. But again, this was part of the Indian Lounge. Now this Indian Lounge featured in an old film in the 1950s. I'll put the name of the film in down there. If you get a chance to watch that film, it was all filmed in here when it was the Indian Lounge. And this bar area here, and also the Empress Ballroom next door. And then there's a back room here, just behind the arena. There's so many rooms in this building, it's unreal. There's just room, off room, off room, off room. So again, you've got the staircase for the Empress through there. And then that'll head up into the Olympia at the back, or the warehouses on Adelaide Street. And you can just see, actually, the Empress entrance through there. So yeah, these are all entrances off the streets. So this is probably used as some kind of a foyer now. I'm not sure what it would have been back in the day. I'll see if I can find out. This is the old goods in area just off Adelaide Street and Leopold Grove at the back. But you can see the outer walls of the building there, the old outer walls, which would have been windows back in the day. So this would have been the outside of the Winter Gardens until in the 1950s, I think, they built all this section down the side here, used for loading in now into the Olympia venue. But yeah, you can see that could be the floral pavilion at the back, or the horseshoe. I think it was. Yeah, definitely is pavilion. So that's the horseshoe pavilion. That's one of the original doorways into the horseshoe there. As you can see on this image, if I show you this old image, you'll see the original doorway there. Okay, so let's take a look at the Olympia Exhibition Hall, which is located just at the side of the Victoria Street entrance, or Coronation Street entrance. Now in here, this was a later addition. And again, I say later, it was built in the 1930s when it was bought by the Blackpool Tower Company, and they installed this building. So you can see the foyer entrance as you come in, and then you have to go down. So it's definitely below ground level, or it looks it, but it isn't, because when you come in the entrance back there, you're actually raised. So you can see the doors just through there. That's street level there. But this, like I said, was built in the 1930s as a large exhibition hall. And it used to house stalls and sideshows and loads of quirky little things inside just to bring people in from the street. Now it runs all the way down Coronation Street, down to Adelaide Street, and then all the way up the side. But you can see, it's like what we would call today a modern conference centre, but it was built back in the 1930s. So right where I'm stood now, like I said, in the centre of the Olympia here, this was bought by the Blackpool Tower Company. It used to be a rival, the whole building, Winter Gardens. Then it was purchased by them. They built this, but at the same time, they demolished the giant Ferris wheel. Now that giant Ferris wheel was seen as taking visitors away from the tower or a threat. So what they did is they got rid of it because they owned it. And they built this instead as an alternative attraction, which was different to anything that they had in the Blackpool Tower. But right where I'm stood now, you would have had a 220-foot high big wheel right here. And it would have been heading this way. So right in the middle of this room. Now it's worth a mention for all you folks that were commenting on my previous videos. You were asking me to mention or do a little bit about what used to be in here in the 60s. Now, if you weren't aware, there used to be a giant fairground in here, and it was permanently based in here. And they had dodgems, waltzers, speedways, and they even had track rides up on the balcony up there. Now, all that fairground lasted for many years, and it's probably what most of you people remember as being in here as a child. So it would be your childhood memories right here. It looks completely different today because it's all blacked out. They've got the cloths all over, but it used to be a glass roof up there, all open as an atrium, and it was all done in the white tiles that you can still see on the balcony over there, to look like a Greek-style building. Now, originally, when this was built, it was done by Andrew Mazai, who did the Spanish Hall, and all the designs in here were actually removed a couple of years after that, so it doesn't remain in here. But like I said, it was then a fairground. And then later, after the fairground, it became known as what I remember it as, Professor Peabody's play area. It was basically a giant jungle gyms. Imagine the size of this room as a jungle gyms. I certainly do. Now that, as far as I'm aware, was in the 80s. I must have come late 80s. I used to go to the jungle gyms in the tower as well, but I do remember coming here maybe once. I remember it being bigger, but that's what a lot of people will remember as well, again, from their childhood. So as the Olympia was built on the side of the floral or the horseshoe pavilion, which is there on the other side of this wall. So if you saw my earlier video, you'll see that this used to be a gardens here, and then they had the big wheel in the centre. So you used to walk through the gardens to enter the winter gardens through these doors here. And you can see one of the original doors here, again, all bricked up now because they've built the Olympia on the side of it. And the old windows that are bricked up again. But I'll put a picture in now just so you can see this room as it was from the outside, looking this way. And then one of the doors still standing here into the floral hall. The old fan engines there. They're amazing. I mean, look at that. You can see for the fairground, DC for waltzer. It definitely tells you what was in here. But this was known as the switch room, just at the back of the Olympia. And then you've got some old storerooms here as well. This would have been part of the floral hall or the pavilion as it's now known. And then you see archways like that, just completely sealed up. And it makes you wonder where that goes. But back in the day, these would have all been in use for something. Looks like a catacombs in here. I wonder where that goes. And then as we head round the side of the Olympia, this is the part I was talking about. This heads all the way up now, the side of Adelaide Street, which is just there. Now, this is what they use today to load all their goods in, to bring into the exhibition venues. Now, I believe this was probably built in the 50s. I'm not 100% sure, but I think the 50s. And you can see that you had the old original entrances here to the Horseshoe Pavilion and the arena up there. So this is at the balcony level, and you can see more what I was saying about the old Greek or Roman tiles The white tiles here, which is what the whole building is decked out in, but you can't see it because of the blackout curtains and that. You can see the original windows here out onto Coronation Street. Now this is all currently getting redeveloped outside. They're replacing all the tiles and cleaning it all on the outside. I'm told there used to be some kind of a dark ride up here, like a tracked ride, back when it was a fairground. They used this balcony area for rides and things as well. So we're just heading down towards the rotunda. Now I'm presuming these have been blocked in, but that would have been open just like this one. You can see the balcony wall there, and it's been blocked in. But this whole area would have been a giant balcony right across the building. And here we are into the rotunda, or the dome as I were going to call it. So yeah, there it is. So this is the corner of Adelaide Street and Coronation Street. And again, I believe this was all open at one point. But there used to be a giant glass dome on the top of this, on the outside as well, but that was taken off many years ago. And one of the old entrances in from Adelaide Street down there. Again, you can see the Greek patterns in the wall and the stairs here.
Before we head outside, I want to show you a few pictures sent to me by a former employee. These pictures show some more hidden rooms in the Olympia, known as Peabody's offices. These are apparently so hidden that the current staff are unaware of their existence. I'm told that they are located within the roof space of the Olympia building, as you can see on this map here, and are very difficult to get to and access. They haven't been seen or used for many years. They definitely look like something from the 1930s. Stuck in time and festering away with no use for them today. As you can see, all the fixtures and fittings still left there to decay, along with light bulbs still in place. I wanted to show you these as they may never be seen again. We have a lot more of these photographs to come, and I'll show you them across the next few videos, so please keep watching. Now let's head outside the Olympia for a look around.
So here we are outside the Olympia building, and as you can see, it's currently having a load of work done on the facade. So all these white tiles are being cleaned and replaced. And just at the end there, you can see the rotunda building. So I'm stood outside at the Olympia side entrance here. So we're stood on the corner of Adelaide Street and Coronation Street. And this is the rotunda behind me here. It would have had a glass dome on top, like I said. And I'll try show you that in a picture. But as we know now, it's gone. The roof's just flat now, doesn't exist anymore. If you just look up there, you can see we've got some lions on the building. And there's one there as well. Now, David tells me that they are the emblem for the Cocker family, who had a big association with the Winter Gardens, and he was one of the original owners of the original Winter Gardens. So this is now part of the Olympia complex inside the Winter Gardens. And like I said, this was added on to fill in the gaps here, but this used to be gardens. So we're going to do a before and after picture taken from about here, just to give you an insight into what used to be here. And you can see how you used to be able to access from this road the original horseshoe there with the original entrances and the gardens in front of it, and the Pavilion Theatre right in the middle of the horseshoe. And today this is what you see, with the Olympia built around the side on all the vacant land. So this is my favourite part of Winter Gardens, the entrance here, which is in use today. And what I love about this is how they've mirrored that frontage there onto the pavement down here. As you can see, Winter Gardens in exactly the same format as the big sign up there.
The Winter Gardens Great Wheel was proposed by Walter D. Bassett of the Gigantic Wheel Company, who also designed the Great Wheels at Earl's Court, Paris and Vienna. I've already done a detailed video on the Earl's Court wheel. You can find that on my channel. He envisioned another version of his successful Earl's Court wheel just 1 year later, but this time in Blackpool and to rival the nearby Blackpool Tower. It had many names throughout its life, known as the Big Wheel, Gigantic Wheel, the Great Wheel, and by locals as the Jolly Wheel. It was to be constructed on land leased from the Winter Gardens Company that used to house a bowling green, miniature lake and manicured gardens. This is where the Olympia Hall stands today. It was constructed on the principle of a bicycle wheel, with a supported steel axle connected to the outer rim with steel tension cables. The solid axle would be 40 foot in length and weighed over 30 tons. It was transported by a road locomotive from Blackpool's Talbot Road goodyard to the Winter Gardens site. It took 16 hours to move between them and caused damage to the road surfaces and pavements on its way. It smashed flags to pieces and ruptured a 3-inch gas main at the junction of Coronation Street and Adelaide Street. The wheel opened in 1896, just 2 years after the Blackpool Tower, and only took 6 months to construct, with no deaths reported during the build process. Now this was an amazing feat in those days. It stood at over 220 feet high and weighed over 1,000 tons without passengers. It was capable of carrying 40 passengers in each of the 30 gondolas, meaning that it could carry over 1,200 people per ride, and at 30 minutes for a complete revolution. It was driven by two 12-horsepower Roby steam engines that turned the wheel with a steel drive cable and not chains like its Earl's Court predecessor. It was said to cost a great deal more in maintenance fees than other similar wheels, due to its location near the sea and the salt-laden air eating away at this steel monster. It was becoming increasingly costly to operate and proving a challenge to fill all the gondolas against its towering neighbour, and so the company went bust in 1916. It was then purchased by the Winter Gardens Company for a measly £1,150, who would operate the wheel on their premises themselves. It ran for a further 12 years under the new ownership, until the Winter Gardens Company themselves were bought out by their long-term rival, the Blackpool Tower Company. It was agreed that the wheel was no longer viable, and it was direct competition for their own tower that was much more popular and better located. And so it was dismantled after its last trip round in October 1928, after 32 years of operation. The wheel was disassembled in a similar way that it was constructed, piece by piece, and parts were stripped, sold off or scrapped. An auction was held for the gondolas, selling at just £20 each, and transported to their new locations by horses. Many were sold to the local area for different uses, including some that lasted right up to the end of the millennium. But only one is still believed to remain, and that is said to be in excellent condition. The gondola is now used as an extension or conservatory to someone's house, and can be found just on the outskirts of Blackpool. It has been clad in PVC on the outside, but the original wood interior can still be seen preserved on the inside. This is the only remaining legacy of this once great wheel, another icon of Blackpool's past. If you know of any other remaining gondolas, please let me know in the comments below. Now let's head to the other side of Winter Gardens and take a look at another long-lost attraction that once stood at the complex.
So I've just relocated to St John's Square, just outside the Winter Gardens, and behind me is what is known as the Empress Building. Now this was built as the original entranceway into the Empress Ballroom. So you would have headed through the building there into the carriage entrance and then into the Italian Gardens, but while we're here it's worth mentioning that there used to be a steel roller coaster here all the way back in 1902. The roller coaster was known as Les Montagnes Russes, which is the Russian mountains in French, and it was made out of steel, and it was one of the earliest forms of steel roller coaster ever. So as I said, it was located just behind this building here, roughly around here on the other side. And as you can see today, that is taken up now with the new Opera House. And again, I say new Opera House, that's from the 1930s. So that's why we know that the roller coaster disappeared, because when that was built, the roller coaster would have had to be removed.
This was one of the earliest forms of a steel roller coaster, as wood was commonplace in roller coaster construction in those days. It was known back then as an elevated railway. The roller coaster opened in 1902 and is believed to have closed sometime during the 1920s, when the new Opera House was built on its footprint. Here's some rare footage of people sitting in the ride cars. This is before the roller coaster had finished construction and opened, and is the only footage believed to exist of this ride. I'm now going to show you some photographs sent to me by a former employee. They show many areas inaccessible or out of bounds to most people. The first two pictures show the roof space above the auditorium in the Opera House. You can see the large ventilation pipe suspended above the roof. These pictures appear to show the fly room above the now blocked off Pavilion Theatre. This would be above the Empress Grill today. The remains of the Grand Vestibule building that we found in the wall, this time taken from the basement levels of the building. Again, you can see the iconic window design we saw above. This photo is taken behind the famous Winter Gardens sign at the Victoria Street entrance. It's in the void between the sign and the Spanish Hall. And finally, this shows an abandoned office or staff area, believed to be on the roof of the complex. This has been untouched for many years and is now sealed off completely. This concludes my Hidden Secrets of Winter Gardens series for now, and I hope you all enjoyed all 9 videos as much as I loved making them. I wanted to show you everything in this wonderful building and didn't want to leave anything out. Thank you for lasting this long in the video, and I'll see you on the next adventure. Thanks for watching.